Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Wednesday. It's January 4th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And you can see on the daily chart here, this was an inside bar to the previous day. We closed up, but we still closed well off the highs, and it just looks like a more of this sideways stuff to me. We did continue to find resistance at the midline here. So we'll have to see if we can push through that or not, but we should be headed back to the highs here. That's what you would expect. Uh, we've gone from the highs to the lows, and we just come out the lows and hadn't gone back to the quite to the highs yet, but we couldn't get through the midline. So there was an FOMC announcement today, and we kind of sold off after that. So I still think the path of least resistance is lower, although we may correct some here before we go lower. I still think we're probably going to go lower here. I wouldn't be surprised to see a measured move um, here at some point. Probably be more like that, and that would actually give us our previous lows here, and I would think we'd make a new low if we get that low. We just have to see. Uh, we could correct further here, and the measured move might be different than what I'm looking at here, but that's the way I would look at it for now on the daily chart. But we'll see what tomorrow brings and how the things kind of continue to play out. But let's flip over to the 2000 tick chart and see how things look here. And here we are with a high level look. The part in the blue is the FOMC. Usually these meeting minutes don't mean much, but lately anything that's pretty much high probability you need to be careful with. We also had this 9 a.m. stuff. I didn't mark this off, but you probably want to pay attention to it as well. I marked some trades in there. I just went ahead and marked those trades anywhere, but you probably would have, I would say, from about 8:45. You can see how it kind of got slow right in there. So I would say from about 8:45 um, to at least 9:15 or so on that. I wouldn't take any trades in there. And on FOMC, I'd probably give it 30 minutes or until it slowed down. But you can kind of see where we were headed into that, and then you can kind of see where things changed after we came out of it. And a lot of times they'll take those moves back, just like they did in both cases here. So just be aware of that. I still marked a few trades in here. You may not want to take them though, just because of the news. Pretty much lately, anything in the red uh, is creating some volatility, so you got to be careful with it. But 7:30 came as we're making this move up here. And of course, we get a close outside a new high, and then we start down. And you can see, let me zoom in here a little closer. You can see we made it. We got the break, new high, and then we made a lower high, which you might even take that lower high on the break out of this range here. Big bearish bar. But if you didn't, when it makes that failed second entry long right there, and again, this is for more experienced traders. So if you're not an experienced trader, I'd stay away from these. Um, and there's plenty of room back to the midline, which is what you'd probably want to be concerned about there. And notice we bounced right off of it to the tick and then went higher. You get a break, a new high, and a second entry short right there. So I like that one for a second entry short. Just make sure here you'd probably want to have enough room back to the EMA. It may be close there, but I like that trade. We really made a triple test there as well. So that's another reason to kind of like that, being a second entry in such a bearish bar. With that trend playing out, I like that trade. And of course, we run down and bounce right off the original trend line. It's just a first entry. Really, on the bigger picture, there's two legs. You got a leg down, correction, another leg down. So on a bigger picture, it probably is a second entry, but that's a little more advanced. I marked it in green just because it It's right off the trend line. It's way away from the EMA. It's a decent signal bar, and that would have been a really nice trade. Then you get your break, move to a new low, and then you turn down again. This one is tempting, but it didn't quite make a new high, and that took us into the news item, and this is just a bounce off the range low, and then another failure here right off the trend line. It's your first break of this green channel, so you'll probably make a new high, and looks like we're at least back in the range. There's plenty of rooms to the highs here, so I like that one. There's a little second entry here. I marked that one green just because it technically this made the high, but you can clearly see two legs and a second entry short there right off a key entry point and a pretty strong down move. I'd probably take that trade, even though that doesn't 100% fit the rules. You know, if you're experienced and you understand what's going on there and you see that for what it is, take that trade. Of course, then you get a little failed breakout here that fails pretty quickly and a little trend up. No entries in here, break, new high, and then we're just chopping sideways again. Finally, you make a triple test here. Fairly bearish bar, right way away from the EMA. Then you make a lower high here. So another chance to get at it, and eventually we break out of there, which you would expect at some point prices to go higher because we're probably going to take this news item back, that sell-off, and we haven't quite taken it back yet. You can see once we got there, it just chopped sideways for a while. I like this trade just as a failed breakout. It's a bullish bar at the low. Again, it doesn't quite make the low, but I think that's okay. Trading range rules there. It is a second entry as well. New high, first entry, second entry. And it's also right at the midline of the main, the bigger blue range there. So you've got a triple test, a failed breakout, the midline, a possible trend line as well. And of course, it has to get confirmed later, but there's a lot of reasons, there's a lot of support behind that, and a lot of reasons to consider you could at least get a scalp. And if you take this, you probably couldn't get in this. It jumps over real fast. So you'd probably have to put a limit order. It'd probably have to be where the original order would be, and then even then, I don't think you get filled. So I marked it, but I don't think you'd get filled on that. But if you're patient, a few minutes later, you kind of get a repeat, another triple test. This one you might even consider entering on the engulfing bar. It breaks lower and turns up. But even if you just waited here, I like going long right there. And again, you will get a runner on that one, and that's off to the races. Might be the only trade you needed today. Even though we had all this news items and some periods you couldn't trade, and we still had a lot of trades here. I just don't see anything in here. I'd be careful about going short yet. And I don't see any long setting up down here. So, but eventually it runs down, pulls back, you get a little breakout, pull back short, but it's also a failed second entry long. So you'll probably get at least a scalp, and this thing might take off because your prices are most likely to come back and test this breakout, even if they're going to go higher. So I like that setup, and of course that takes you into on this one. I'd be flat an hour ahead of time on this FOMC stuff. At the very least, 12:30. So maybe right in there. There's still I still don't see any entries here I really like. So it doesn't change anything. And then you can see here, I would have probably waited 30 minutes. And then you get a second entry long that confirms the trend line right here. New high, first entry, second entry, go long there. There's actually another second entry here, but this is starting to look kind of sideways. And when this bar didn't break, it's still got basically, even though it closes, I don't know if that quite closes in its upper 1/3. And it is a second entry, so it's something to consider. I didn't mark it. I felt it was too risky. So, I mean, you got two bars there, and this one has a tiny body. You might get another sideways bar here and get stuck in congestion. it's one you could consider. It is the first break of the trend line. It is a second entry. The bar is close to being in the upper 1/3. It's probably closes in the upper 1/3. It's just a little too bearish for me. I'm not crazy about it. And of course, we did get the break and two legs up to a new high, and then you make a lower high, and look how far away you are from the EMA. And we're back inside the range here, turning down right near the highs. I like going short there just to try to ride it back to the EMA, and maybe you get lucky and it takes off. And we're traveling down. We do bounce right there at the trend line again. It's just a first entry. And you actually get a second entry short there that's worth considering, but I'm not, it's just really close to the EMA there. And you see there's not quite enough room to scalp out. So that one worries me. And it looks very congested and sideways. But if you wait just a few minutes, you're running down, you try to go higher. This is really just sideways stuff. So first entry, second entry, and you get a first entry, second entry short with a big bearish bar. I like that one just to try to get a scalp out of it. It's a little close to those lows. You might argue with it being that late in the day that it should be green since it's so close. But that's a really bearish bar when you would expect prices to be working lower here. And so I marked it red, but it's one, and maybe it ought to be green. But if you took it, I wouldn't beat you up too bad on that one. And that's kind of how I saw it. I know I went through that pretty quickly. I mean, there's still a lot of trades here, but they're all pretty straightforward today. Nothing. There's a couple advanced trades in there, but most of it was fairly straightforward. Considered it was a sideways day, we still had some really strong movement up and some really strong movement back down, then another. I mean, it's really mixed here, but it's big enough that there were some trends, and if you find these trends, you can trade them, and you should trade them if you get good setups on trends. So just remember, on range days like this, your best setups are going to be your sure things, which are a consistent bounce off the lows or consistent reversal off the highs, and you don't see that today. So we're not playing very many range type moves. We're playing some sideways stuff within the range, and we're playing the trends, but we're not really playing, even though this is mostly sideways and range like, we're not really playing any range, the main range, which is this light blue. You see it goes across, the lows are right across here, and the highs are right across here. We're not really playing that. We're really playing the sideways stuff within that and the trends within that. And so it's kind of a oddball day. But just be careful with these high volatility news items. Be real careful with those. Be out. I mean, any kind of FOMC that's red, I'd say be out at least 30 minutes, if not an hour prior. And some of this other stuff, like manufacturing and jolts, 15 to 30 minutes. You might even be okay 15 minutes, but you don't want to get caught in something like this and you can't get out, then only to get stopped out, even though it maybe ends up going exactly where you thought it was. As you see, if you were betting to go long here and didn't get out, it would have stopped you out before it went exactly where you thought it was going to go. So you got to be careful with that. Excuse me. So really, yeah, not much else I can say about today. So I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm still trying to catch up. I'm late with this today. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. We'll be back again tomorrow. We'll wrap up our week. Believe it or not, tomorrow's already Thursday. Kind of a short week with Monday being a holiday. But hope you had a good trading day. Hope you learned something today. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.